No lizards. No aliens. No nonsense. This is Reality Bytes. Wake up! No lizards. No aliens. No nonsense. This is Reality Bytes.
Okay, first up, I guess the attack on the poor never ever ends, does it? And not necessarily the poor these days. It's anybody that's, I guess, not a millionaire or thereabouts, or some kind of celebrity or something, or politician. But if you're unfortunate enough to be on benefits, here we go again. Half of households receive more in benefits than they pay in taxes. Now, first thing that strikes me about that headline is how much do we pay MPs to come up with this crap? Aren't they receiving benefits from the taxpayer? Like 70 grand a year in wages? Like all the expenses? And that's, of course, not enough for them. They've got to steal more and fraudulently fill in expense claims to screw you even more. And yet here they are, blaming people who are in an unfortunate position of not being able to work, or having barely enough money through some form of minimum wage, or living wage as I like to call it these days, that they have to rely on benefits. Of course, as I say, the MPs are amongst the biggest welfare scroungers in the country. And the next ones, of course, are the royal family. What do they pay in taxes? I'll tell you, nothing. Nothing. How can you pay yourself? It's Her Majesty's Revenue Commissioners. How can the Queen pay taxes to herself? She doesn't. It's quite simple. And they are, without doubt, the biggest welfare scroungers in the country. But hey, the peasants still get out there and wave their little flags standing in the gutter as our gold-gilded carriage rolls by, which of course the peasants paid for. It's nice, isn't it? Great work if you can get it. The Office for National Statistics reveals that more than 13 million households in Britain receive more in benefits than they pay in taxes. Well, again, how is it possible in the 21st century that 13 million households in Britain are on benefits? Shouldn't that be the shocking statistic from the Office for National Statistics? No, it's not. It's that they receive more in benefits than they pay in taxes. Well, everybody receives more than they pay in taxes. Everybody. You know, you get paid a wage, you spend money, you pay taxes, VAT, whatever. You still get paid more than you pay in taxes. At the moment. Unless you're Greek, you know, you pay everything in taxes more or less. More than half of households in Britain receive more in benefits and benefits in kind than they pay in taxes. I wonder what they mean by benefits in kind. Free prescriptions maybe? Oh, you know, shock horror. That's a gross violation of something or other, isn't it? Unless an MP does it, of course. Official figures have revealed, official figures, of course, as George Osborne prepares to make £12 billion worth of welfare cuts. He's not going to cut his own wages, is he? They'll get their 10% rise because, hey, politicians should be paid more. I read that article out a few weeks ago, and this idiot, I can't remember what rag of a newspaper said it, that they deserved it. They actually deserved it. The Office for National Statistics disclosed that 13.7 million households in Britain receive more in benefits, while the richest fifth of Britons pay 43.7% of the nation's tax. And if you believe that, I've got a bridge on the moon I can sell you. The richest fifth, I wonder who they include in that, because the richest 1-2% pay nothing anyway. So who are the people paying this money? Tell you, the ordinary folk. That's it. But they're called rich these days. Just to make the poor feel worse. The proportion receiving more in benefits than they pay in taxes has risen significantly from 45.9% in 1997 to 51.5% last year. It remains higher than it was before the recession. Well, we're in the depression now, that's why. Mr Osborne is next week expected to announce in his budget a series of swathing cuts to Britain's welfare state, with the levels, tax credits and child benefit likely to be significantly reduced. But not for him, of course. He'll get a pay rise. The move will prove highly controversial. Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London, that's the good cop, bad cop routine coming in case you missed it. The Mayor of London has said he is against hacking back benefits for low-paid workers until companies cough up more money and increase pay. Yeah, right, Boris. Harriet Harman, that's her that supports paedophilia. The acting Labour leader, she's acting all right, has said that cutting tax credits would mean robbing working families of an average of £1,400 a year. However, the figures from the ONS demonstrate the scale of the welfare state in Britain. It actually demonstrates the state of Britain. Never mind the welfare side of it. The average household pays $13,402 in taxes and receives $12,940 in benefits, which include both cash payments such as tax credits and benefits in kind, such as the cost of education and the health service. So that's a benefit in kind now. A free health service and a free education, that's a benefit now. You're not entitled to that anymore. So what do you pay taxes for in the first place? War, I guess. The poorest fifth of households receive $14,868 in benefits, but pay just $4,886 in tax. I'd like to meet somebody who got £14,868 in benefits. Their incomes have been boosted significantly. Their incomes now, it's not a right or anything. It's their income. That's classed as income now, when you're on the dole and struggling to feed your children, have been boosted significantly by a series of government policies aimed at helping the lowest paid, including Mr Osborne's decision to raise the personal allowance to £10,600. The official figures also disclosed that average incomes have risen by 3.4% over the past year, the biggest annual increase since 2002-03. Well, that doesn't apply to people on benefits. However, the biggest rise in incomes since the start of the However, this is the Telegraph, and this is a level of journalism. It's obviously a cut and paste from the government. However, the biggest rise in incomes since the start of the has been for pensioners. There you go. Who have seen their incomes rise by an average of 7.3% or £1,400. Well, pensioners have paid taxes all their lives. I think they deserve a break, instead of people trying to bump them off in hospitals because they see them as worthless, useless eaters. They've been protected by government policies such as a triple lock, which automatically increases pension in line with wages, prices, or 2.5%, whichever is the highest. Incomes for working-age families have fallen by 5.5% over the same period because of the impact of the recession, the ONS said. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has said that the government's decision to protect pension benefits will see the welfare budget fall to its lowest level for 25 years, and mass poverty right across the country. Britain currently spends $125 billion a year on working age benefits. Working age benefits. Over the last Parliament, the government achieved £15 billion worth of cuts, but Mr Osborne is now pushing ahead with £12 billion worth of cuts in just 2 years. That's 10%. So everybody's going to lose 10% of their benefits, or benefits in kind, I guess. They're just going to start making them pay for everything, regardless if they can afford it or not. Very much like the system here in America for healthcare. It's all an insurance racket, and it's all priced accordingly to be a racket. You're talking thousands of dollars for something trivial, like getting braces put in your teeth or something. Thousands of dollars, and just little tubes of cream or something for eczema or something are like $300. It's just insanity. But of course, Big Pharma wins in the end, don't they? But how are they going to rake in more money? This is a Telegraph on the 25th of June. What does a taxman know about you, your finances and your lifestyle? HMRC, that's Her Majesty's Revenue Commissioners, who she pays no taxes to, of course. Impressive new software trawls billions of items of data from dozens of sources in its hunt for underpaid tax, and it's about to have access to even more information, which can be shared with 60 other countries. What right do they have to do that? Eh? And it's interesting here that the picture used in this article shows a stack of CCTV cameras. Facial recognition, anybody? The offices of a taxman are not usually credited with efficiency and success, but there is one aspect of HM revenue and customs, which is highly, some would say terrifyingly, efficient, and that is its powerful computer program, which is accessing and trawling databases of personal financial information on an unprecedented scale. Of course, that big fancy computer which the taxpayer paid for to spy on them. You pay for your own chains over and over again. The software called Connect has been developed at a cost of £80 million over 7 years. Money well spent, eh? Its basic job is to scour vast databanks of personal and commercial information, seeking to unearth links between individual taxpayers and business, income, assets and transactions. It then matches its findings against the information the taxpayer has provided through the return. Discrepancies are flagged and could prompt a tax investigation. The searches take mere seconds. The reach of the Connect project and the speed with which the databanks can be interrogated are both increasing. More than 1 billion items of data from 30 sources already fall within its scope, according to the accountancy group BDO, which has just published a report on the HMRC's digital evolution. These sources include public sector records, such as the Land Registry or DVLA. That's your driving licence they're checking up on. I don't see what that's got to do with your tax paying. See below, as well as a growing number of private businesses or trade associations. From next year, Connect's powers will extend further still. September 2016 is when HMRC starts having access to files held by banks and other financial firms based in British overseas territories, such as the Channel Islands, and from 2017 Connect goes truly global with access to data in a further 60 countries. So much for privacy, eh? A success, yes, in that the numbers of investigations initiated by Connect are growing, and in that 3 billion extra tax has been clawed in as a result of Connect since its launch in 2008. 7 years they got 3 billion, eh? 7 years, and yet they're going to take 12 billion off poor people in 2 years. You can see where the priorities are, can't you? But many have their doubts. Not only is there a possibility that some of the data could be erroneous or incomplete, triggering spurious tax investigations or worse, possible prosecutions, but there are also fears about security. And then, of course, the niggling anxiety about so much of our personal information residing in the hands of the state. What can HMRC find out about you? And it's got the subheadings here, your income and pensions. One of Connect's biggest jobs is to hunt for income disparities. It will process information about your bank account balances and income and match this with other information, mainly your tax return and, for example, your PAYE data submitted by your employer. Another excellent piece of grammar by the Telegraph there. If the information doesn't tally, start preparing your answers. Richard Morley, BDO partner and expert on Connect. This is a private company spying on you. It's not HMRC. It's a private company. HMRC is using Connect to find undeclared tax, but also to go further and shed light on other activities or assets which are not being properly taxed. An example he gives is where Connect detects income from overseas. The taxman will want not only that income to be properly taxed, but information about its source. Is there a business or property generating that income, and if so, are other taxes due? Well, generally, when you have a property somewhere else, or you've got some other business abroad, you pay taxes in that country, like I've always done. And I don't see what business it is of anybody else other than the country which you're getting the benefit of an income from. Your bank account, savings and investments. Banks and other financial firms report to HMRC the interest paid to individuals across scores of millions of accounts, and this data is fed into Connect. The main object is to spot undeclared taxable savings income. So you get taxed on savings, eh? What a scam. They encourage you to save, give you minimal interest, and then they rip you off by taxing you as well. But Connect can go further, identifying, for example, whether investors have exceeded their annual ISA allowance. If you are claiming tax relief on pension contributions and entering this on your tax return, Connect will be wanting to see a parallel increase in the balance held by your pension provider. Unless you're an MP, of course, and you can just lie and get away with it. Your property. Well, it's not your property if they can spy on you and tax you on it, is it? HMRC has for years had access to land registry databases, but it can now conduct searches faster than ever before. The land registry typically holds details of the price you paid for a property and your mortgage lender if there is one. By cross-referencing stamp duty records with the land registry's files, Connect can identify where capital gains tax is thought to be owing, for example. Well, they know all that information anyway. They've already got that information, so what is this computer really for? Right? Multiple property ownership where the taxpayer isn't also declaring rental income could be another trigger for investigation. Again, use cash. HMRC has not yet, according to a number of accountants representing large landlords, made blanket demands of estate agencies to provide lists of clients and the rents paid to them. Well, they will, and the big ones will get away with it. And the small guys will be put out of business, the little private family businesses, like I tend to have rented off of when I was in the UK. I wouldn't go near any of the big agencies at all. But this would be within its powers under Schedule 36, wide-ranging legislation which gives the taxman power to force third parties to disclose data where it believes there is a lot of under-reporting of tax, where it believes. It doesn't know. So anybody they want to do an investigation on, they can just say, well, we believe you're avoiding tax. They don't have to have any evidence whatsoever and just investigate you. Just for the hell of it. I guess they've got to justify their own jobs. Your lifestyle and shopping. Remember all those loyalty cards? HMRC uses data collecting programs or robots to patrol popular online marketplaces such as eBay or Gumtree to see whether your level of activity is suspiciously high. Suspiciously high. You're selling your furniture. You're suspicious. Is your passion for antiques merely your hobby, or are you running a small business from your shed whose profits are not appearing on your return? To manually compare the data would take years, but Connect can do it virtually instantly, Mr. Morley said, because it's all been set up that way. Gumtree, Amazon, eBay, they're all compliant in this. And complicit, I guess is the right word. Your business. For genuine small businesses, there's few of them left. Small businesses, I mean, not genuine ones. Connect has other weapons at its disposal. So it's a war, isn't it? You don't need weapons unless you're in a war. Such as an ability to plough through a staggering 4 years of credit card transactions. Don't use a credit card. Don't use a debit card. Cash only. Again, without hefty computing power, such exercises would have been impossible. Now Connect can crank into action to check that your stated sales fit with this electronic record of card takings. Connect said that the 150 HMRC analysts, I wonder how much they all get paid, who pore over the results it generates, deploy something called lifestyle profiling in their efforts to unearth anomalies and unpaid tax. If you drive an expensive vehicle, according to records held by the DVLA, Connect will want to see income to match. You can't have saved up for it, can you? Or you couldn't have got it cheap. Maybe your friend was selling it off cheap to you. Who knows? But you're under suspicion for that. Again, as Mr. Morley points out, one question leads to another. You might be able to satisfy HMRC that the whole vehicle was bought with a cash gift. There you go, he said. But you can then expect it. You can then expect to it ask who gave you the gift. That's in quotation marks. I doubt the guy actually said that, but if he did, he's a moron. And if it was an inheritance, whether the appropriate tax was paid. Your social media. Remember Mark Zuckerberg calling anybody who used Facebook a fuckwit? Well, here you are. Your social media. Entries on Facebook and Twitter are not routinely trolled by Connect, experts say. Not routinely. But if you become the subject of an investigation, you can expect these to be examined for evidence of spending, travel, or ownership of property and other assets. Could it all go wrong? Well, somebody should smash up the computer, that would sort it out, wouldn't it? Apart from information gathered by HMRC being incorrect or incomplete, there is also the problem of sending and storing the data securely. This is likely to become far more of an issue in the next 2 years as other countries' tax systems integrate their own versions of Connect with ours. So here we are, we're getting into a global taxation system. To facilitate what one commentator has dubbed a global swap shop of everyone's personal financial data. Which is exactly what it is. From 2016, financial institutions in British overseas territories will share data with the HMRC. From 2017, this extends to 60 other OECD countries, and by 2020, virtually all countries will have some form of data sharing agreement in place. But I asked a solicitor this once, if I spent 180 days in one country, 180 days in the other, and spent 5 days travelling between the two, am I liable for tax in any of them? And she refused to answer. So maybe there's a solution, eh? So HMRC would share data with another country only if the individual was due to pay tax there. In return, HMRC would want bank account data from, say, South Africa, where it related to a tax-paying residence here. We will see data being sent to all signatory countries, Mr. Morley said. It certainly raises issues around privacy and security. There would be obvious opportunities for hackers, and authorities will have to introduce extremely secure safeguards. Well, the government are the hackers. They're hacking into your personal information. They might not call it hacking, but that's exactly what it is. If they make laws to force people to give it up, they may as well be hacking. It's the same result, isn't it? George Bull, a partner at rival accountant Baker Tilly, made a more philosophical comment. We are seeing the shift of responsibility from a tax collector to the taxpayer, he said. In the past, the taxman would tell you what you owe. Today, it's up to you to declare what you should be paying, and HMRC has the means to check that what you're saying is complete and correct. So why are you having to do it in the first place? Why aren't they doing their job? And doing it the way they always did it? Because they want to catch you out. They basically want to take everything from you. If you're caught in this system, avoiding tax, and they'll set some ridiculous limit to start with, and it'll gradually be reduced and reduced and reduced, you'll be going to prison, and they'll take everything off you. That's what this is about. And the system will be so complicated, you won't know if you're filling in a proper tax return. It's bad enough as it is now. Not that I would know, I've never filled one in. But I've seen the forms. The best thing is not to have anything to do with them, and deal in cash only. That's the best way. But moving on, the Independent again, the 25th of June. Freeze sperm at 18 to avoid risks linked to later fatherhood, says experts. No, you better freeze it now before you're sterile. I think that's what they're saying. And they're telling you exactly what they're going to do here. You're going to be sterile. You ain't going to be able to have children. So they're wanting you to freeze your sperm. And I'm sure they want to experiment on it as well. And mess around with it and see what freakology they can impose on it, and what freaks come of it. State-sponsored sperm banking should be the norm for all 18-year-olds because of the risk attached to being an older father, according to a British bioethicist. That's a geneticist. Or eugenicist, should I say. Eugenicist or bioethicists these days. But so they're going to try and make this law. The 18-year-olds have to donate sperm to a bank. I wonder whose interest that's in, eh? An article on the BBC website quotes Dr. Kevin Smith from Abertay University in Dundee as saying the sperm of all 18-year-olds should be frozen for use in later life. By who? The sperm of older men contains a greater number of mutations, increasing the genetic disorders. Really? As men increasingly have children later in their lives, Dr. Smith suggests that sperm banking should become routine for 18-year-olds. Government data shows that since the mid-1990s, men most commonly have children when they are aged between 30 and 34. But Dr. Smith's suggestion has been criticised by a fertility expert as frozen sperm is less fertile than its fresh equivalent, and couples would be dependent on IVF. There you have it. You'd be dependent on IVF. And who's going to give you it? Who's going to give you permission to have children? Because that's where this is going. You'll need a licence to breed. Brave new world, eh? The BBC article quotes Professor Adam Ballin, the chairman of the British Fertility Society, as saying, not only does it provide a very artificial approach to procreation, but also a false sense of security as the technology does not guarantee a baby. He suggested instead encouraging greater support for young couples to work and have children. Well, they don't want young couples to have children. They just want people to die off and be less of us to cause them any problems. And here's another way they're going to do it. Gay marriage. And this is The Guardian. I mean, talk about hypocrisy. The Guardian's been pushing this crap for years, and here they are complaining about it now in some way or other. Probably just trying to normalise it even more. Good cop, bad cop routine from the same journalists, say. How same-sex marriage could ruin civilization. In the wake of the US Supreme Court ruling that legalised same-sex marriage throughout America, many commentators and objectors have claimed it will have disastrous consequences. Well, people have been saying that for decades, when they first started all this crap. But rather than just dismissing them as irrational bitterness, it's important to consider the genuine scientific basis for such claim. Well, since when was The Guardian concerned with genuine scientific basis for anything? Global warming? Vaccines? They're on board with the whole agenda. Eugenicist, Plato's Guardian is what I call it. Plato's Guardian. That's all it is. Same-sex marriage is now legal throughout the USA. This is a good thing. It's always nice when people get equal treatment under the law. I'm waiting for the first big gay divorce and all these people, and then we'll see what equality is. Sadly, not everyone agrees. Such is the speed of modern news and communication, the announcement of the Supreme Court decision was essentially immediately followed by furious objections and doom-laden predictions of the collapse of society for various reasons. It's easy to dismiss these objections as angry, incoherent bitterness from people who can't or won't accept that the rest of the human race doesn't have to conform to their antiquated views, and that many people do just that. Well, why should we have to conform to marriage at all? And have this legal document from this government that couldn't give a damn about you, but they want you in this situation so they can control you and tax you accordingly because you're married under their laws, their rules, and you will do as they say, or else. What if there are genuine scientific reasons to fear same-sex marriage? What, like having no children? There's a genuine one. After all, we in the UK know that same-sex marriage caused extreme flooding when it was legalised here. What? And now that it's permitted in a country with the size and influence of the USA, the consequences could be even more catastrophic. Here are just some possibilities we should brace ourselves for. Now, there's a link to the same-sex marriage caused flooding, extreme flooding, but I ain't even going to click on it. It's just Guardian lunacy, as usual. The overturning of nature. Governor Mike Huckabee pointed out that for the Supreme Court to legalise same-sex marriage is to overturn nature, which is impossible. The Supreme Court can no more repeal the laws of nature and nature's God on marriage than it can the laws of gravity. That's Governor Mike Huckabee's quote from June the 26th. Which is strange because this article came out on June the 25th. How's that? However, same-sex marriage is now legal, so clearly it is possible for humans to overturn nature. This opens up a wide variety of problems, given how nature is responsible for everything that keeps the planet running. Clearly, LGBT people have the power to overrule nature to suit their own needs. While we can hope they restrict this ability to things like increasing the number of rainbows, there is no guarantee of this. Here's just your Guardian fluffy nonsense to try and make them seem humorous, I guess. What if some careless homosexual is struggling with a heavy suitcase and decides to lower the mass of the planet to reduce the strength of gravity? We'd all be flung out of the atmosphere without warning. They call this journalism, you know. This wouldn't be a problem if same-sex marriage were natural, like opposite-sex marriage. Opposite-sex marriage occurs all the time in nature. Numerous species are regularly seen in naturally occurring registry offices, signing naturally occurring forms to ensure the marriage is recognised by naturally occurring legal frameworks. No, they don't. No, they don't. That's the difference. See, we're the only idiots that sign up to that. Penguins are especially known for this, which is why they look like they're wearing suits. Ha ha ha. As already hinted at, the celebrations of the legalisation of same-sex marriage have resulted in a stark increase in the number of rainbows seen everywhere. The rainbow is a symbol of the LGBT movement, so this makes sense. No harm in rainbows, right? Wrong. It may seem like harmless celebration to put rainbows in every possible location, but what about the effect this is having on the eyes of those who have to look at them? The retina in the eye relies on photoreceptors, specialised cells that detect light. Because they are organic and rely on biological processes, these photoreceptors can become exhausted if exposed to a particular stimulus for too long. Like reading The Guardian, I guess. Constant exposure to rainbows could mean people can't see colours as well, and this could be disastrous. How will they know when to stop or go at a traffic light, or which wire to cut when defusing a bomb? Ha ha ha. The Guardian, you're so funny. It's so funny. I don't know what IQ the person has that wrote this, but it smacks a kind of Charlie Skelton kind of porn movie making idiocy. This isn't even considering the possible damage to children. Well, it is going to damage children, because they're going to see this as perfectly normal, and they'll be encouraged at school to try being gay. Don't knock it till you've tried it, kids. It might be fun. The young brain's virtual cortex is still developing, and this development is based on what the young person sees. There you go. He sees men kissing in the street, thinks it's perfectly normal. Eh? Climate change. Well, it couldn't be The Guardian without climate change being blamed on something, eh? Legalising same-sex marriage has one obvious result: more marriages. This means more weddings. Weddings mean a lot of people gathered in one place, a situation which normally makes a place very warm, seeing as how people give off body heat. Oh, really? People also have to travel to weddings, often over long distances. This requires vehicles, the vast majority of which give off CO2. Well, no, the vast majority of vehicles don't give off CO2, they give off CO2. Increasing the number of weddings will no doubt lead to more of this, and thus increasing the threat and potential damage of climate change. What about all those climate conferences that people fly to all over the world, to exotic locations, over and over again? There's not just one every year, there's hundreds of these things going on, where these green hypocrites and zealots all fly to and have their prostitutes and everything brought in for them. Gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, boys, girls, children. I'm sure every taste is catered for. Overall, opponents of same-sex marriage could make an effective and logical case against marriage simply by highlighting the dangers of climate change. None of them seem to be doing this, though. Weird. Yeah, weird, eh? One of the main arguments against same-sex marriage is that marriage is for procreation, and a couple of the same sex can't reproduce. However, given that legalising same-sex marriage overturns the laws of nature, this means the laws of nature preventing same-sex couples from reproducing are now null and void, so maybe same-sex couples can reproduce. Think about that. Think about what they're talking about here. Another argument is the slippery slope argument, which says that legalising same-sex marriage will inevitably lead to people entering polygamous marriages, entering into incestuous marriages, or even marrying animals like dogs and cats. Where's the logic here? And what are they trying to hint at? What is gay marriage got to do with having sex with dogs and cats? Eh? Or incest, for that matter. What if this happens? What if people enter into legal marriages with animals? With the laws of nature now obsolete, this would mean such marriages can include procreation. Are you listening to this? And where will this end up? A race of half-human, half-animal hybrids. That's where. We'll turn Earth into a veritable planet of Dr. Moreau. It was actually called the Island of Dr. Moreau. The Guardian can't even get that right. Written by H.G. Wells. Bringing human civilization to an end. Admittedly, most of the things discussed here aren't actually likely. It's got likely in inverted commas. More the fevered ramblings of an unhinged mind at best. Is that himself? I wonder. The idiot that wrote this. But that's the way this is going. That's the way it's going. rights for everybody, rights for paedophiles to have sex with children, as long as they consent, of course. You know, as long as some pervert says, oh, here, just stroke this, and I'll give you this bag of chocolate. Okay, child says. That's where we're going. And no children, of course. No children born. But that's the idea, isn't it? And here's one of the prime architects of that, Bill Gates. And what's he up to now? This is June 28th, The Independent. Bill Gates calls for a Manhattan-style project for renewable energy drive. Now, the Manhattan Project was in total secrecy to make the atomic bomb. So what Bill Gates is calling for is something to be developed in total secrecy. Why? Shouldn't this so-called philanthropist be giving this to the world openly and freely? But no, he wants somebody else to pay for it. You. But you ain't going to get to know anything about it. Government should invest in research into renewable energy on the same scale as the Manhattan Project and the Apollo moon missions. Bill Gates has said he planned to double his own investment in green technologies to nearly $1.3 billion, and that's why he wants the taxpayer to invest in it as well, so he'll rake in even more money. But what happened to free energy? He just wants renewable so he can keep charging people. The world's richest man, if you believe that, again, I've still got that bridge on the moon to sell you. Anybody thinks Bill Gates is the world's richest man needs to wonder who put him in that position. Because they're way richer than he is, and you'll never hear about them. The world's richest man told the Financial Times that he had invested $1 billion, about £650 million, in companies involved in carbon capture technologies. That includes fracking, by the way. For all you greenies out there, if any of you ever listen to this, which I doubt. Carbon capture uses the same process as fracking for gas. But you won't hear greenies talking about that, will you? Next generation nuclear, new kinds of batteries and other types of research in the field. And he said over the next 5 years, there's a good chance that will double. Mr. Gates, the founder of Microsoft, said great innovation was still needed to make energy in a way that would reduce carbon dioxide emissions significantly. He's only invested $1 billion of his hundreds of billions he's got, I guess. So he's not that serious, is he? But guarantee the governments have put in a lot more than that just because this idiot, and he is an idiot, he's a brainless twat, who's been put up there by the Rockefellers. Well funded by them as well. Because there's so much uncertainty and there are so many different paths, it should be like the Manhattan Project and the Apollo Project in the sense that the government should put in a serious amount of R&D, he told the Financial Times. The Manhattan Project was a US research program that led to the creation of the first nuclear bombs. It ultimately employed 130,000 people and cost more than $23 billion in today's prices. But Mr. Gates also suggested savvy private investors stood to make a fortune, including him, of course, in the renewable energy industry in much the same way as those who picked the right firms at the dawn of the computer age. I guess he includes himself in that, but he was obviously allowed to steal all the technology he got, and patents didn't matter to him because he had powerful friends. If I came and talked to you about software in the late 1970s, I would tell you, hey, somebody's going to make a lot of money. Now there's a ton of software companies whose names will never be remembered. If you happen to pick Microsoft, Apple or Google, you would have made lots of money, he said. Mr. Gates highlighted several areas of research that could prove promising, including technologies that would harness the power of the wind at altitudes of about 20,000 feet. These could involve kites, kite balloon hybrids known as kitoons, or flying turbines capable of harnessing the energy of the jet stream. Capturing the energy is very difficult. It's classic capitalism. There's some wild-eyed companies, but it's great. I wish governments would help those guys out because there's a 10% chance it's the magic solution, he said. A 10% chance. 10%. So he wants all the governments and, ultimately taxpayers to gamble on a 10% chance. Would you gamble on a 10 to 1 shot? Would you? Another nascent technology to attract his attention is solar chemical, a kind of artificial photosynthesis that could be used to create hydrogen for fuel. And Mr. Gates has invested several $100 million in nuclear recycling, which sees reactors powered by waste uranium from existing power plants, as well as their own waste. Well, it's obviously not depleted, is it, if it's still being used to work reactors? Nuclear technology today is failing on cost, safety, proliferation, waste and fuel shortage, and so any technology that comes in has to have some answer to all of those things, he said. Well, Gates, you're not the answer to it, that's for sure. But talking about solar, Britons are apparently so stupid that they can't apply sunscreen properly, according to the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. The health of Britons is at risk because they are hugely confused about sunscreen, says the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. Britons are being put at risk of skin damage and cancer because of the huge confusion surrounding the labelling of sunscreen, according to the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. They're so stupid they have to say that twice. High summer may be in full swing, but according to a poll commissioned by the chemist's body, most people do not understand the factor on SPF ratings on creams and fail to realise that products may fail to protect them from certain harmful sun rays. Well, don't use sun cream, just don't go out in the sun for longer than you need to. Because you're not supposed to. You're not built for it. That's why you're pale-skinned. The Society is calling on manufacturers to use a single, easy-to-understand rating system for both UVA and UVB protection to replace the current confusing dual system. Currently, the SPF rating applies only to ultraviolet B or UVB rays that cause skin cancer and sunburn. Not to mention the cancer caused by the sun cream, of course. Protection from deep penetrating ultraviolet A, UVA rays, also linked with cancer as well as skin aging, is denoted by a star rating, but only 1 in 3 people check this when buying sunscreen. The survey by YouGov of 2,000 adults found that a quarter of people did not know what the rating on their sun protection stood for, while less than half of them, they've missed out them here, said they always or often use sun protection. Well, I never use it. And I go out in the sun. I'm in Florida. I go out in the sun most days. But I don't stay out in it and bake myself because I'm not stupid. 15% of adults with children in their households admitted that they never checked a UVA rating on a lotion. Professor Jane Lawrence, Chief Scientist at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, said, "This survey indicates that there is a huge amount of confusion around sunscreen labelling that is a barrier to effective sun protection. Clearly, many consumers do not realise the SPF rating applies only to the amount of protection offered against UVB rays, not UVA rays, both of which can damage the skin and cause skin cancer. So why did they separate them in the first place? Why not just say, this cream has a rating of 50 and will protect you from harmful rays? Simple English. But of course, they don't want people to know anything about this stuff. They want them confused. People should not have to pick their way through complicated dual ratings information to understand how sunscreen works and the amount of protection it potentially provides. Well, I tell you what, if it doesn't provide any, it's fraud, isn't it? We think it's time for sunscreen manufacturers to provide one easy-to-understand rating based on a simple description of the total amount of sun protection offered, low, medium, high, and very high protection. Well, regardless of that, it depends on your own skin. You know, it's no good saying to somebody who's got a well-browned body that you'll get high protection. It's not going to be the same for somebody with pure white skin. It doesn't matter if they're using the same cream or not. People now have largely got the message that they must protect their skin from the sun using sunscreen, along with other precautions such as covering up and keeping out the sun during the hottest part of the day. Oh wow, it's not rocket science, is it? What the RPS is calling for now is one uniform measure for all sun protection products, so pharmacists can provide easy-to-understand advice on the effectiveness of products and how they should be used. Well, how about teaching the pharmacists about vaccines and other pharmaceutical drugs and the effectiveness or not of them? Because they're absolutely clueless if you ask them about anything to do with flu shots, for example, which they offer in supermarkets here. And virtually every store you go in has ads for them. I wouldn't trust your pharmacist to give you advice on anything, to be honest. But here's some not-so-stupid Brits. Britain's hostility to lie detector tests is misguided and irrational, says a leading psychologist, who of course rely on them, don't they, to keep themselves in well-paid jobs. Widespread use of polygraph tests should be adopted to better protect children and other victims from sex abusers, a leading forensic psychiatrist claims. They've got to bring in the child abuse thing, haven't they? And use children to bring in something for everybody. The UK's failure to use polygraph or so-called lie detector tests is misguided and irrational and putting children at risk, he claims, but they don't work. And that's been proven time and time again. They're at best unreliable. Professor Don Grubin, who has helped train British police and probation officers as part of Ministry of Justice trials to monitor and assess suspected paedophiles, says the tests help better identify high-risk sex offenders. He also believes the test has an important role in aiding police investigations into other crimes. So here you are, it's for everything. I guess including your tax. Professor Grubin of Newcastle University says the police and criminal justice system could reap enormous benefits if it can overcome the image of polygraphs and used on daytime television, such as the Jeremy Kyle show, to trap lying spouses having affairs. Polygraph testing is something everyone thinks they know about because they see it on crime shows and daytime TV, but there are lots of aspects which are simply misunderstood or misconstrued, said Professor Grubin, or Grubby. Frequently referred to as a lie detector, the polygraph does not actually recognise lies. There you go. It said it records activity in the autonomic nervous system of those undergoing the tests. That nervous system, said to be largely outside our conscious control, reveals a stress reaction which can be measured by skilled examiners. It's said to be largely outside our conscious control. They don't actually know. Critics claim the system is scientifically flawed, has low levels of accuracy, is open to abuse, and can be easily defeated by countermeasures. But police and other law enforcement agencies in the US use it as an investigative tool to rule out suspects from inquiries, obtain a confession, or to generate more lines of inquiry. That doesn't mean it works. They're using it as a psychological tool, by the sound of it. There's a real reluctance to use it in investigations for reasons that I think are irrational, Professor Grubin added. If it is used as part of a thought-through strategy, it helps you to eliminate suspects and gain numerous other leads. The academic says he is not advocating its use in court, but as an investigative tool which can save police time and money. Well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It might just lead them up the garden path in all different directions, and the real perpetrator of a crime isn't even arrested to undertake this idiotic test. The forensic psychiatrist has carried out a series of studies for the Justice Ministry examining the test's effectiveness and in better assessing the threat posed by sex offenders. In the pilot schemes, the threat assessment on just over a third of men arrested for downloading child porn from the internet was increased after they underwent polygraph tests during which they made significant new disclosures about the extent of their offending. The tests, which were voluntary, were conducted after arrest and interview by police. Well, they admitted to things because they thought the test worked. Because they think the polygraph works. That's why they admitted to some things. Quite simple. Professor Grubin has also conducted 2 major polygraph studies with the National Offender Management System, which were equally revealing. The Ministry of Justice has adopted a policy of mandatory testing of offenders as a consequence of his studies. In Search of Truth, the Unreliable Polygraph. This is another article out of the same newspaper earlier this year. Trying to figure out whether someone is lying or not is perhaps as old as human consciousness. People give up all kinds of physical signs, from deep breathing and dilated pupils to nervous tics and evasive behaviour, that other people take as evidence of untruthfulness. Putting these physiological traits into a scientific context is what the polygraph is supposed to do. The trouble is that, although the results from a polygraph are better than random chance, it fails to live up to the claims of its proponents, especially those in the US, where it is used widely in criminal investigations and for screening employees. A number of studies have exposed the inherent weaknesses of the polygraph. Nervous but honest interviewees can be wrongly labelled as liars, while inveterate liars using countermeasures such as deliberate conscious control over heartbeat can emerge from a polygraph interrogation unscathed. And I'll mention psychopaths as well. Psychopaths can fool these machines no problem whatsoever, because they have no conscience. The US National Academy, and they feel no guilt about lying, so it doesn't affect them whatsoever. The US National Academy of Sciences investigated the scientific rationale for using polygraphs more than a decade ago and found it lacking. So they've known this for a decade. Nearly 60 laboratory studies to test the accuracy of polygraphs found that even under these highly controlled conditions, the machine performed well below perfection, which means it was useless, ultimately. But yeah. Britons ain't so stupid after all, are they? They can detect bullshit when they see it. But talking about stupid people, MPs, Guardian, June 29th. These people aren't stupid, but their activities are all out in the open, so they obviously don't care. Akin to the old psychopaths, I guess. Keeping it in the family. New MPs continue to hire relatives of staff. House of Commons Register reveals 15 newly elected MPs have employed family members, despite public scepticism following the expenses scandal. What scepticism? Eh? The public don't give a damn. They let these crooks do as they please. I don't hear any outcry about it. I don't see anybody marching down to their MP's office and demanding that they sack his family. At least 15 new MPs have already hired family members at the expense of the taxpayer on salaries of up to £40,000 per year, the new House of Commons Register of Interest has revealed. I wonder how many aren't on it. The document shows 125, or 1 in 5 MPs, still employs a connected party, most often a spouse, parent or child, despite public scepticism about the practice in the wake of the expenses scandal. This is a slight decline since the last Parliament, as many long-standing backbenchers who employed relatives stood down at the election. So it's a decline because they no longer work there. That's all. A number of new MPs, however, have wasted no time in putting relatives on the payroll. The pay scale is nepotism, isn't it? The pay scale for MP staff members is between £15,000 and £43,272 a year, although some are employed on a part-time basis, so will receive less. Well, it's still a lot of money. 7 of the 15 were Conservatives, including David Warburton, the new MP for Somerset and Frome, who has employed his wife as a communications officer and personal assistant, and Steve Double, the new MP for St Austell, and Nuki, who has employed his wife as a senior caseworker and diary secretary. I wonder what she does for her money, eh? I wonder. Makes a tea, maybe. 4 were new Scottish National Party MPs, including Paul Monaghan, MP for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross, employing his brother as a communications manager, and Corey Wilson, MP for Ayr. That means he answers the phone. That's what that means. He answers the phone. MP for Ayr, Carrick and Cumnock, employing her son as a caseworker. A further 4 were Labour MPs, including Gerald Jones, the new MP for Merthyr Tydfil and Rumney, employing his partner as a senior parliamentary assistant, and Harry Hartman, the new MP for Sheffield Brightside and Hillsborough, who took on his wife as a part-time researcher. Unlike members of the European Parliament who are banned from hiring their spouses or other relations, MPs are still allowed to employ people close to them. For an MP earning, it's because they don't spill the beans on them, eh? Keep it all in the family, keep it close. What happens in the family stays in the family, eh? For an MP earning a basic salary of £67,060 a year, employing a spouse at the top end of the earning scale can increase the household income by 2/3. Not bad, eh? Some of the highly paid cabinet ministers who are still employing their spouses include Patrick McLaughlin, the Transport Secretary, Michael Fallon, the Defence Secretary, and Priti Patel, a Minister of State for Employment who attends Cabinet. The drinks cabinet, I guess. The new Register of Interest also revealed outside earnings by MPs for the first time this Parliament. This shows that David Cameron accepted a £500 hamper for Fortnum and Mason on the 8th of May, the day of his election victory. The Prime Minister also declared that he's still receiving more than £10,000 a year from renting out his London home while living in Downing Street, and yet has renewed his honorary membership of Ellesborough Golf Club in Buckinghamshire worth £1,165 a year. Separately, Boris Johnson, the London Mayor, revealed that he had received an advance of £88,000 for a book as yet unwritten from publisher Hodder & Stoughton without declaring its subject. Well, he probably doesn't know the subject because he ain't writing it. His ghostwriter will do that. He was also paid £22,916 on 13th of May for writing his Daily Telegraph column. Not bad, eh? Not bad. And they talked about the expenses scandal in that article. And he had gone back just a year, June 2014, from the same newspaper. Maria Miller affair shows regulations can't help us if MPs have no moral guidance. They've no moral scruples either, because they've no morals. It's a corrosion that won't brush off. 20 years ago, when the owner of Harris told me how he'd been advised to dole out brown envelopes to MPs, my first reaction was shock and shame. Really? You were shocked? Why? This is normal. Wants of cash for questions and tabled motions in the mother of parliaments. Could British public life, the world of men in pinstripe suits, really be so crassly seedy as this? No, it's a lot worse. I added that bit. The answer then was that, yes, indeed it could, and the grisly answer today, as a cynical public curls its lips, is grimmer yet. Now we assume the worst. Really? What, like paedophilia? That's still to come out, isn't it? But I guess that's why they got paid so much, to keep their mouths shut, and why they've got family on board. We assume that politicians are on the make or take, that they'll pulp their principles in a jam, just as we assume that our policemen won't take an inconvenient truth, or that our media muffle truth on demand. There's 3 facts. thrown in as, speculation. The politicians on the make? Absolutely. We don't assume it, we know it. And they'll pulp their principles in a jam. Well, they don't have any principles. Just as we assume that our policemen won't tell an inconvenient truth, well, they lie. Or that our media muffle truth on demand. The media always muffle the truth on demand from the bosses who own them. Almost 2 decades of the Committee for Standards in Public Life launched as a great cleanser by Lord Nolan, of report after report extolling openness and of sundry other pillars of decent administration, where have all the flowers gone as Nigel Farage lays his wreath? One problem, the problem Nick Clegg never solved debating Europe with Farage, is getting the facts straight. In context, the dozens of good and true people who've served on the Standards Committee since its birth can both testify to and give proof of that for themselves. Well, it's just a gatekeeper. The worst extravagances of these thieves and cretins will never see the light of day. The politicians around the table wanted to do a proper job. Well, that'll be a first. The policemen who sat there were angered by what they found, in just the same way that thousands upon thousands of working journalists loathed the lies and cruelties of phone hacking. Distrust is our common enemy. Distrust is also a game any number can play. Maria Miller, for instance, has been a bit of a blank space as Culture Secretary from start to impending finish, but she was well paid for it. Her supposed clout as a Minister for Levison and the Royal Charters barely extends to the pavement of Parliament Street. The threats of retribution from her special advisers, taped of course, should shiver few Fleet Street timbers. Miller's behaviour under pressure is more an example of stupidity than cupidity. No, she knew exactly what she was doing. But distrust, the same blight that David Cameron inflicted on the press, spreads an awful grime and naturally presents an obvious opportunity. Who can suppose that in regally chartered Britain, special advisers won't be able to finger newspaper editors? After all, they and their masters do that already to the BBC. I wonder who the masters are. They finger the BBC, do they? Well, there's a lot of fingering goes on at the BBC, and it's got nothing to do with journalists. The crucial lesson here, one applicable far more widely, is that standards enforced don't work half as well as standards embraced. John Major, in the wake of these brown envelopes, felt that Nolan had to be backed, but Tony Blair never acknowledged that he alone couldn't be the guardian of ministerial probity. No, because he's a psychopath. Judge and jury for his own administration. This is that multi-millionaire who's raking in cash, hand over fist since he left office. I'm sure he was raking it in when he was in there as well. But he's a good Labour man, isn't he? He supports the workers and the poorly paid. Gordon Brown had to be dragged to a halfway house. MPs rounded on their own parliamentary commissioner, the battling Elizabeth Fulkin, and when she pushed through tough questions too far. In one sense, the most significant revelation of the Miller affair is that David Cameron didn't know that the 3 lay members lately brought in to strengthen the Commission Standards Committee couldn't vote. Don't bother him with the details of accountability. Going through the motions is more than enough. And of course, that's all MPs do, isn't it? And congressmen, senators, call them what you will, is go through the motions. Actors on the world stage, members of this thing called Parliament, which is just, a talking shop for talking heads who are laughing behind the backs at you, sometimes openly to your face. And the less we pay attention to these clowns, the better. And it's really is, it's way, way, way beyond the time we should start saying no to everything these people propose, because none of it is to our benefit. Not one bit of it. And, the more of us that say no, the better. And I guess nobody will do anything that knows nothing until something actually happens to themselves. They lose their house or whatever it is. But the time's got to come with us. I hate to use the greeny term tipping point, but there's got to be a tipping point somewhere when enough people will have had enough, and they actually start to realise that these politicians, whatever country they're in, none of them work for you. None of them. And they never will do. So start saying no to everything. Absolutely everything. Don't comply with it. As I mentioned, talking about the taxman looking at computer records, don't use electronic cash. Use cash, paper, coins, however fraudulent it is. But it's better than these people spying on you all the time. Okay, that's the end of tonight's broadcast, and thanks to UCY TV listeners for letting me rebroadcast this on the network. You've been listening to Reality Bytes Radio. Thank you.
No lizards, no aliens, no nonsense. This is Reality Bytes.